You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode down at the one and only MENT Apparel today. Cracking beers with our guest. Cheers.
Cheers, Mike.
I think that's the first time I cracked a beer on the podcast. No, it's not. It's the second time. Because Stone Cloud...
Joel from
good old Joel cracked beers then. But yeah, cheers. Thanks for all your clients for stocking your fridge with lovely free beer, which is fantastic. I'm drinking Lively Beer Works Amber. What are you drinking?
I've actually got a Coors Banquet here.
Going with Banquet.
Yeah, going with the light. Just going the light lager.
Yeah. Can't beat a Coors Banquet though.
It's good, man. Tap the Rockies.
It is tap the Rockies for sure. We did have a little bit of snow this morning, last night.
Yeah.
Felt a little bit like Colorado until about 11 o'clock today when it all melted. And
my gosh, those are some big flakes too.
Dude, they were huge. I was driving home last night. I missed Usher's Super Bowl performance to drive home in this, before it got really bad. I hear it was great.
It was good, yeah.
I also heard from a friend today that her work colleagues don't know who Usher is.
Really?
I was like, this generation, man. We're getting to that age that
oh man,
you're working with people who are like in their 18, 19, 20 year olds and they don't know who Usher is.
Don't tell me that, man. That makes me feel so old.
So old. But yeah, man, excited. I appreciate you having me on your podcast, the BeerHopOK podcast, which that will be out by the time this one goes out. And you guys post episode every couple of weeks and talk about beer, and we'll dive into why you started that. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about you. What's your Oklahoma story, man? Where were you born and raised?
Born in Tulsa. Basically, my whole younger life living there, going to high school and all that sort of stuff. Played music, played soccer, was in track. I kind of dabbled in a lot of sports. But soccer was my main passion. Got a couple scholarships. My parents aren't too happy about it, but chose to go to OU instead of take the soccer scholarships because I wanted to watch OU football. So I ended up going to Norman and lived there, going to school, and met my wife. And then we kind of just stayed in this area of the state. We never went back. I always kind of thought I'd go back to Tulsa. I loved it. Still do. But stayed here, and we lived in Norman for a little while, and then we moved up here to the city about 11 years ago. So Love the state, man.
Yeah.
Proud of it. Been here my whole life.
Grew up in Tulsa. Soccer sounds like the thing from a young age.
Yeah, for sure. I was pretty good, I guess. I was very competitive. I was fortunate enough to have parents that supported me through that, and got to go to some really cool places and tournaments and whatnot. And I really do miss it. I just at my age, I can't justify an ACL tear, so I've hung up the boots, man.
Yeah, it's like I obviously growing up in the UK, like you're playing it. It's the first sport generally everyone plays. And yeah, like when I came out here, I would play intramurals, 5-a-side indoor. And even then I was just like, I'm going to break something.
Yeah, man.
If I don't warm up properly. And I was like 24, 25 at that, and 23, 24. And yeah, man, I imagine the full pitch stuff. Now I got buddies who are like, hey, come to our game. And they go to Soccer City and they're out there being competitive. And like, especially on that like turf grass, like that's just, that is just, it just screams injuries and ACL and knee tears and just like,
dude, it does. It grabs like it can really grab your cleat and really turn your ankle into like a way that's not natural with grass. You know what I mean? Where grass would like maybe tear a little bit and sort of give, where that stuff doesn't really give much.
God, it's awful.
And then you're getting hit into boards, and it's basically like hockey and soccer combined.
Yeah,
but I do miss it. I really, man, I played at ISA and Soccer City for years and outdoor, when I came up here. And so I don't know, but I'll just watch it from now on,
What was your position?
I started out, when I was younger, I started out as a striker cause I have a little bit of speed. And then my coaches, as I got a little bit older, and developed, they moved me to wing. So the majority of my competitive career, I was a right and left winger. Yeah. So I was just running up and down the field. I don't know, running 8 or 9 miles a game, something like that. Whatever you do in a game.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a lot of running.
Yeah.
You mentioned going to OU, kind of despite your parents, wanting you to go other places. Did you have offers to go play soccer at university?
Yeah, all D2. But yeah, I had several in Texas, one in Missouri, regionally. And they were all full rides, at least the majority of them were. And I've always felt bad about that because, my parents, they dedicated all this time and money into me, playing soccer, and, it paid off, right? Now their son's going to get their school paid for. And here I am saying, no, I think I'd rather, party and watch OU football. And, so I think they've forgiven me. I'm not, at least I hope so. So, but yeah, so I chose that route as opposed to playing soccer. Yeah.
So that was the thing that took you, I guess keeps you busy. Your kind of love of sports. Does graphic design come in at that time? Or does that come in later?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So my dad, was a graphic designer. That's what he did full time when I was growing up. And, learned a lot from him. When I went to OU, I needed to pick a degree, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But at that age, 18, 19, whatever I was, I didn't want to do what my dad did. I don't know. I call it it wasn't rebelling. But it was, just wanted to do something different, I guess. So I got a degree in film video. Did a lot of cool things. I learned a lot of cool stuff, and my first job out of college was working for Channel 9 here in OKC, and I was a camera operator in studio. And I thought it was actually kind of a cool gig. Got to meet some fun people, but the hours just sucked. My phone alarm was going off at 3:30 a.m. And anyway, so I could only handle enough of that, and I really didn't like television in terms of like live production, and so. And I had done some stuff, like filming and like with like helping buddies and like that during college and a little bit after. And I just really wasn't into it. And so I kind of fell back onto graphic design because I already sort of had a familiarity with it. And so I was applying for jobs, and I ended up getting one at a company called Top of the World in Norman. They've since been bought by Fanatics, but they do college headwear, and they're one of the biggest in the country. Anyway, got a really cool job there doing that, and I was into sports, so it was kind of a cool fit, and I was doing graphic design, and when you get to make a hat and actually see it being sold in like Liz, and seeing it be worn by other people around, it was kind of a cool feeling. Yeah. So it was a cool gig, man. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, I kind of fell back into graphic design at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the Channel 9 thing. God, that must have just been.
Dude.
3:30 alarms or 3 a.m. alarms get old fast, right? And obviously now they've gone to robots, right? They've got like full-on automated system. But yeah, having someone, having to be there and do all that, and like, I can't imagine just. And I guess would you just do shifts, or was you were on the morning show?
Yeah, it was. I was mostly morning, but then like every now and then they would move me to evening, because the evening was like it was like varsity, and whereas the morning was like JV. And so every now and then they'd want you to work the evening, because if someone were to leave, and they would have to like, basically if you were to get promoted or whatever, they'd want you to have experience doing the evening, which is more difficult. So I would get to do the evenings every now and then, but it was mostly mornings, and I'm not a morning person. So like, here I am staying up till 1 or something stupid, and then I'm getting like 2 hours sleep. Yeah, there were some phones being thrown across the room when the alarm went off at 3:30. But back then we didn't have smartphones. Those phones were a little bit more durable when they'd hit a wall.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Those Nokia 3310s,
Yeah.
they were indestructible.
Yeah.
They're still alive today. The battery's still full right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, that's why you just obviously didn't want to be there for much longer. And
couldn't do it, man.
It's an intense world too, right? There's a lot of egos to deal with, a lot of stuff going on. Like, especially during storm season, I'm sure that was chaos.
Oh, it was, yeah. And then they'd have sweeps weeks where like everyone had to be there. You couldn't go on vacation, and like it was all hands on deck. And something that bothered me a lot though with the job is, I was in production. And the way it works in that world is like the talent is the highest paid, the most I guess coveted, spoiled, all that sort of stuff. And here the production is the people that actually make it happen, get less pay, get less benefit. You know what I mean? It's just, and it was hard for me to really stomach that sort of like way of like doing business. But that's the way it is, so. And I wasn't going to be an anchor. That wasn't me. So.
Yeah, what a different life that would have been, right?
I know, man.
You're out there just, covered in makeup and in front of a green screen, or doing, covering car chases and whatever else is going on in Oklahoma City that people put on the news. Which
I remember, one thing that sticks out in my head during that time period is. We were there, or I was there when, remember standard definition, and then HD was a sort of like the transition. Mm-hmm. And I was there when they were like, when basically the HD cameras had been purchased.
Yeah.
And so they were like prepping everyone that like on this day, it was going to be a lot more visible, the clarity and everything. So like basically the anchors were freaking out. They're like, how much makeup do I have to put on? Like it was this whole thing. Like everyone, like especially the anchors, like, well, what does that mean? Do I need to like?
Can you see my nose?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do I need to trim my nostrils? Yeah, stuff like that. But I don't know. That just stuck out because it was an interesting transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little things, right? Little stories of just stuff that happens. Like looking back, why does that stick out? Well, it's kind of a big moment for some people.
Yeah.
Big moment in technology. So you leave there, then go to Top of the World, which is like you said. I mean, like the big leagues in game, in hat stuff and design. And then is that when you really finally scratch your itch for graphic design?
Yeah, I think
I'm pretty good at this. Like, maybe I can make this a thing.
I think. Yeah. I mean, yes. I'd have to think so. I mean, kind of like. Like I said, I had done graphic design a little bit before, so I was just sort of like I was like basically taking the dust off, or cleaning the rust off the wheels or whatever. And I was really digging the job. I mean, it was really cool, man. Like, I mean, you got to design hats for like Florida, OU, kind of like all sorts of colleges, and see people wear them on TV and things like that. But at the same time, like a few years in, I realized like this job was, it was equally frustrating. It was one of those like many jobs. There was a lot of like politics and bureaucracy going on. And, I really hate that. And I can't really play ball. It's not really my sort of mentality. But then like there were just situations, like, opportunities that I was getting passed over on, different scenarios where like finding out like other people, were being compensated differently, in a way that I felt was very unfair. And so all these things sort of started like, I don't know, sort of like, showing themselves to me. And I was just getting very frustrated. Like to the point to where I just hated my job, like it sucks because it was on paper, it's great. But then like a few years later, it's like all soured on me. So I was applying to other places, wasn't really landing anything. So I was just kind of stuck there. And kind of the light bulb moment really for me was I was in Tulsa for a wedding for a friend. And I've told the story, but like basically we were walking downtown and we went to this like local screen print shop, and they just sold like T-shirts that were all about like Tulsa. Shout out Boomtown Tees, by the way. That's who it is. Walked in there, saw some really cool things, and I was like, I had screen printed a little bit in college, and I was a designer, and I've always sort of liked fashion. I've always sort of like been drawn to it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I was like, I could do this. And then I ended up talking with who I think was the owner at the time. And he brought me back in the back, showed me like the four screen press. And, I've seen him before. I'd used him before, and I was like, man, okay, like I can do this. Yeah. So really like in the next 6 months, I was talking to buddies that were lawyers trying to figure out how to like, start an LLC, how to get a website, like basically what the hell am I doing? So I basically started a company, in about 6 months' time, launched it November 1st, and, it's called MENT Apparel. Here we are now.
Here we are.
Yeah. So it was just sort of like kind of born out of like frustration,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, similar to a lot of entrepreneur stories, right? Yeah. You just kind of like, I don't want to be at my job. I think I can do this. And, it's something that fits naturally to you. You're already kind of in the industry anyway, designing, and you already kind of had a little bit of experience doing this. It's just, it's a huge leap to be like, no, I'm going to leave my job because it's steady and it gives me a paycheck and benefits and start my own thing. Yeah. And obviously at this time you're married, you're with your wife at this time, right? Yeah. So you've got like a house payment and you're with, your relationship. Right. It's a lot different if you're just like living in an apartment on your own.
Oh, right? For sure.
You've got like, a support, you got to support someone, but you also got a support system as well, which is good and a bad thing. And,
like the way, I think it worked out really well at first. My wife's great. She's been supportive the whole time. And, like I didn't leave my job at the time. I kind of just did it. I just moonlighted, and cause I really wasn't all that busy. Yeah. I was just sort of coming up with designs and, figuring out what I wanted to print them on. And then, popping up at like, local festivals and art shows and things like that, and trying to sell them to people that are walking around. And, so that's kind of what we did for, the first couple of years, but it gave me an outlet. That was the most important thing. Like, I could go to my work and be frustrated, and I was, but I knew that when I went home, I had something that like I was passionate about that I could work on, you know what I mean? So it gave me, it made everything in a way okay. Mm-hmm. I was still looking for other jobs, but it passed the time a lot better.
Yeah, you're right. It gives you something to look forward to, and gets you through the day, every day, right? When you're slowly getting new orders, or, friends are going on bachelor parties or bachelorettes, and like, hey, design us a T-shirt. Whatever it is, you're getting in the woods, getting out there. And like I said, going to shows on the weekend and building it that way, it's such an organic way to build it. Yeah. But then also like to your kind of, you're building it on your terms, right? You're not rushing into things being like, I've got to make this order and do this because I need the money. Like, you're just like, no, I'm okay. Thankfully I have a job coming in that even though I don't enjoy it, like it's my support system. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to do this weekend, and slowly build it, which is, you build it your way.
Dude, you couldn't have said it better. Like, I think the route that we chose was a very patient one. Like I could have probably sought after, investors or something like that. but we didn't, and my wife and I just chose to sort of like slow grow this thing. And it's still that way. Like we don't have outside money. We don't, basically a lot, like everything that we make outside of my pay goes back into the business, and we took the slow road, but I wanted to do it because it gave me, like you said, a way to be able to build it the way I wanted to build it.
Where's the name come from?
So it's kind of interesting. It's not the greatest story or anything like that, but back in the beginning, when I first formed the company, all the designs that we would print on shirts were designed based on words that had the suffix MENT. So I'll give you an example. We had a shirt that was sort of kind of Kelly green, and we sort of like designed like an old push lawnmower. And it was called Moment. So it's a play on words with the suffix MENT. So it's and then we had another one. It was a pink tank top, and it had like a little piggy bank on it. It was called Pigment. So in the very beginning, all of our concepts had the suffix MENT in the design and the name. And it was cool. I do think one of these days, I think we're gonna kind of maybe pay a little homage to that and go back and do a couple things like that. We've gotten away with it because I knew that it was going to be limiting, long term. So, but that's how it started. So it was MENT Apparel, and it was based on the suffix MENT.
Yeah.
So
how long have you been in business for?
It'll be 11 and a half right now. Okay. So 12 this November.
Yeah. I was thinking if you're at the 10 year mark, you could bring it back, but we're already past that. So we'll think of something else.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's cool to do it, right? It's cool to have something unique to do that. And, like you slow build it. Did your wife share any graphic design? Like, is she artistic as well or not?
No, she's an accountant, and
that helps in business too.
Oh my gosh! Shout out to my wife. I've been sort of the one running the day to day, and doing most of the work, but she's in the background doing our books and taxes, and I could not be more thankful for that. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to numbers. I'm sure I could learn, but I don't want to learn. And this allows us not to have to pay someone to do it. Yeah. So no, she's not a designer. She's a CPA. She has another job, so she doesn't do this full time. She just does it on the side.
Yeah. There are people in the world like your wife who are great at numbers. Yep. And then there are me and you.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
It's just like, I know I could do it. Do I want to? Absolutely not.
Oh man, just stay in your lane, dude. Yeah. I know it's not my strength. I'm not going to go there.
Right. God. So business is slowly growing. You're still working at, at your day job. You're not really enjoying it. You're applying for jobs. You're looking for, something, but this is like the dream road in the back of your mind that one day you can quit everything and go into it.
Yeah.
When does that happen?
So a little bit down the road, not that far after I founded it, I did get another job at Cisco Foods in Norman, Oklahoma. So like not actually that far from where I was working at the time. Mm-hmm. And I knew nothing about food. I've never worked in the food business, but the job sounded cool. It was a marketing and design coordinator. And so basically what I learned really quickly is there was one creative person for the entire Oklahoma branch, and that was me. So I was being bombarded from all different directions. I was doing video, I was doing photography, I was doing menu design, I was doing whatever.
Wow.
Like it was actually kind of fun.
Every day's different.
Yeah, every day was different. And I did enjoy it. I probably would have stayed there longer, but there was a point in 2017 where my wife and I had a conversation, and we were like, you have to choose one. It got to that point, thankfully. And so, luckily with my wife having a good steady job, we made the decision for me to leave Cisco and do MENT full time. And so that was the end of January in 2017. I left, and I haven't worked for anyone since.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great feeling, right?
It is, man. I could go back if I had to, but it would be very hard because it's just not the way I operate.
Yeah. But there's so much strength in that too, right? Like taking that leap and in your head knowing that you're totally fine going back to, whatever it is that you want to do, like, and having that reassurance that there are plenty of jobs out there that if I wanted to go back and get a job, I could get one within a week and I'd be fine. But I just love like that, I think that entrepreneurial spirit or whatever you want to call it, that, we share with so many others who have taken that leap. It's totally worth it, even if you don't succeed. Yeah. Right. Like
it is.
It pains me when I see people just like stuck 9 to 5 and they're just like, what do I do? Right. But some of them are really, it's sad because some of them are stuck because they've got bills and they don't have that like creative side or whatever it is. But, it seemed that during COVID and over the podcasts that I've done, there's so many that like, hey, I started a business during COVID and now I'm doing this, right? Or I was working from home, and like people had that just slight opportunity to take a full advantage of it. And they did, thankfully. And it's just, God, I wish everyone just give it a go. And like you did, start a business while you're already, there's so much stuff that can be done from 8 to midnight after you put the kids to bed.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. There's a lot to be said about just going out on a limb, whether you leave your full-time job or not. I think even if you fail, like, I think if you're one of those people that is stuck and you're wanting to do something else, even failing doing the thing that you're trying makes you feel good. Now you'd rather not fail, but in failure, at least you tried. There's a peace of mind. There's like there's closure a little bit with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish more people would try. I really do. I have friends alike that don't like their jobs, and I've tried to impart what I can, but at the end of the day, it's up to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you only fail if you give up, right? Yeah. Like you can continue to keep failing and failing forward and keep doing and eventually get there. And obviously, granted, it takes some natural talent and a bit of kind of can-do attitude. You can't just show up and be like, "Oh, I'm going to do this now." Well, it takes time and effort, but it's so worth it. It
is, man. It really is. It's gratifying. It's I don't know. I look back sometimes and I try to put myself in the shoes of like pre-MENT John, and it's hard. It's hard because I'm like, oh my God, like what if I was still what if I was still in that situation? Like I would be a different person than I am right now. Like I wouldn't be the same person, and for the worse, I think probably.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope that people can find at least the courage to be able to try something, even if it's moonlighting. I think you never know, man.
That's a great way to say it. You never know. And also, you work more hours now than you did working at Cisco or working at the apparel place. But it doesn't feel like work, because I come in here and music's on, you're having a good time. Like we had a creative night here a couple of weeks ago, which went really well, and that was still 8 o'clock. Like that doesn't feel like work, It's just kind of hanging out with a bunch of guys and just talking about what it is that we do. But then also you're going to events on the weekend, like you're going with the pop-up stuff with a tent, and you're out here for the marathon. Like if you probably look at your time spent, you're effectively working more. Which most people will be like, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you not want your weekends to yourself and to watch the football or, whatever it is that people do on the weekends? I don't work a 9 to 5, so I don't know what I would do on the weekends if I did. But like, it's different when you love what you do.
It is, man. It is. And, there are people out there, my wife is one of them. She's not interested in taking a leap, and she likes the idea of knowing that Saturdays and Sundays there are no work, and so there are people that like the security and routine of the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not one of them. But man, like I work way more than I did, like you said, when I was at Cisco or Top of the World. But it's gratifying.
Yeah.
Like I don't mind putting in 80 hours because I love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. There's people for it, right? There's people that just want to sit around on Saturday on the couch and cuddle with their dogs and do nothing, or plant, go gardening or run or whatever it is. And I'm just not wired that way, and obviously you're not either.
Yep.
But what I have an issue with, and then what I just wanted people listening to just give it a go is those people who are in the middle, right?
Yeah. They're on the fence.
They're on the fence. They don't like what they wanted. They don't like what they do. They have a dream to start something. Start it. Just figure out. There's plenty of sleep a little less.
Yep.
Right.
There's plenty of time in a day. People, I think sometimes when we're busy, we get over, and if you're overwhelmed, I mean, it's easy to think about how much time we don't have.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of the time people actually don't realize how much time there is. So we're sitting, you could sit around and look at your phone for an hour or two. Well, that's a lot of time that could have been, productive other places. And so, it's prioritizing your time and what you want to spend your time doing, so I don't know.
So 2017, the moment that you think I'm doing this full time and going into it, you quit your job at Cisco. What's kind of the state of the business at that point? Obviously, it's doing well. And kind of what are your kind of core clients? Do you have repeat business? Because a lot of your business is breweries now, right?
Yeah.
Had that already kicked off? Tell me about the state of the business at that point.
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit. So a little bit before that 2017 departure, something key happened. So up until about mid 2015, maybe early 2016, I can't remember exactly, the majority of what MENT was retail. So we would design, I would design our own stuff and we would print it and we'd sell it at, we had a website, and then we of course would sell it at different festivals around the state. We'd travel around on weekends. Well, before I left Cisco, I interviewed for a job at Anthem Brewing for a marketing and sales director, I believe is what the title of the job was. I didn't get it, but I ended up meeting Patrick Lively, who at the time was the president of Anthem. And we really kind of kicked it off. He really liked me. And something I actually brought up in the interview was how breweries, all the apparel I see at breweries are very sort of, I don't know, just out of touch. They're on black t-shirts with white print. There's no character. It's basically just a logo on a black tee, and there's nothing wrong with that, but everyone's doing the same thing. And we kind of had a discussion about that. Well, when I didn't get the job, I took it upon myself to put together a little presentation for him of what I thought Anthem could do, and I sent it to him. And I think within 24 hours, I got a response from him, and he really, really liked it, and he wanted to set up a meeting. And so basically, that was our first, B2B customer, business to business. Before that, it was only to customer, B2C. So we basically got Anthem as an account, and we were doing seasonal lineups. We would produce logo shirts and stuff for them, but we would have a seasonal release, spring, fall, summer, and winter. And it would all change. It'd be low supply, high demand sort of thing. And we'd have a party. I would come up and set up and introduce myself, talk about it if people wanted to talk about it. Anyway, that started going really well. And so the news through our social media and through other people that would go and see it, they would tell so-and-so and whatever. And so I started getting contacted by other businesses wanting us to do their businesses, like shirts and stuff like that. So that sort of kind of snowballed. And what happened was I started getting so busy, and that's what led up to me having to make the decision to leave. Because now all of a sudden it wasn't just me designing t-shirts and setting up on a Saturday. Now I'm having to fulfill orders for people, make deliveries and basically keep people in stock, and having to go there and see what their inventory levels are like and things like that. So that's kind of how it all got started. And then when I left, at this point, we had already built up a decent client base, and it just sort of kind of kept going. And the majority of our businesses early on were breweries, because I'm a big craft beer fan. And I think people saw what we were doing with Anthem and how we weren't changing their image, but we were making them cool on a level that they weren't cool before.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was kind of cool how it all happened. I've always been a fan of color and fashion. I've mentioned that earlier, but not a lot of people weren't using that as a way to sort of outfit their own brand. And so that in a way I was kind of a consultant as well.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of like educate people on, hey, this is in fact, or this is in trend right now. This is what people are buying. This is what I think you should do. And so, left Cisco because of that sort of snowball that happened from Anthem, and it just kind of kept going.
Yeah. So, but like you said, before that moment, you had your eye on fashion and obviously a passion for fashion. Wow, that's hard to say. You had, obviously a passion for it, and up until then, the business was you creating designs, and that's very tough to do, right?
Yeah.
Like the having a an account with Anthem and breweries, like, seems like a more streamlined part of business rather than you going out and thinking, what's in trend now? Do I create this? Because fashion changes all the time.
Oh yeah.
Right. And like, obviously you have a broader audience if you just cater to, compared to catering to just breweries, but you're competing with so many more people too.
Yeah.
So
100%.
That came at a really good time to just, and I love just like the intuition that you were like, I just put together this because it's what I do.
Yeah.
You didn't get any, yes, something came of it, but you didn't expect something of it.
No.
You didn't get the job, right?
Right.
Like, and then Pat's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like, just, like the worst that can happen is someone can say no.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people get beat up about that, but like, to me, no doesn't affect me. It's just a word. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, like the worst that was going to happen was I was not going to get an email back ever. Right. And then I was just going to move on. But, like it didn't take me that long to do it. I mean, I already had things in mind. And so anyway, I'm forever thankful for Pat because, now he opened a new brewery, Lively Beer Works, right? You're drinking his amber. But, Pat sort of kind of opened the doors for me. And, I've told him this on many occasions, but I've always sort of been thankful for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's your foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the brewery scene, it couldn't have come at a better time. It's exploding at that time,
right?
And obviously it's only getting better now, and then like you said, you do a great job for Anthem, and because everyone knows everybody in Oklahoma City, you start getting phone calls from, the guys around, and also like they're already doing wacky can designs. Most people are, right?
Yeah.
Like they're already trying to separate themselves anyway. Why not put that artwork into their clothing line? Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've already got the fashion element to add to that, whether it's just like different hat styles or, like crop top hoodies for the women, whatever it is. Like, there is something that is just better than black t-shirt with the white, logo on it, which I am sat wearing a black "This is Oklahoma" t-shirt because that's all I wear.
You're right across
laughing my head off when you were saying that.
But
but this is just, this is just for me, and I'm not trying to, if I were trying to sell these as a product, it would need to be a little bit more cooler than just like black with the logo, like you need to. And then with the seasonal thing, such a good idea too, because like if you have those raving fans that love your brewery or your business, if you keep redesigning stuff, they're gonna buy it from you.
Exactly. You're basically your regulars are gonna end up buying repeat merch. I mean, that's the first thing I tell anyone is like, listen, if you just have logo tees, you can change the color of the tee, but if one of your regulars has that t-shirt in a different color, they're very unlikely to buy another one, and unless they just really love the color. But you put new stuff out. It doesn't have to be seasonal, but you put new stuff out like on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Guess what? That one sale from so-and-so is going to turn into, maybe 3 or 5 over a course of a year. That adds up. And the same can go for the beer too, but it's a way of doing, it's a retail strategy. And honestly, just kind of like, if you're putting out stuff anyway, it's kind of common sense to me.
Yeah. Did you kind of take your love of, I assume it's streetwear fashion that you're a big fan of. Do you take your love of that and just kind of mash that into the brewery world?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I would use their mark as a secondary mark as a part of a bigger graphic. Sometimes I wouldn't at all. Sometimes maybe I would use, typography is one of my big skill sets when it comes to graphic design. So I would lean into that, and I would use typography to sort of like depict something, which is a good way to do it because basically it's still saying the brand without actually having the logo. So you can accomplish 2 things at once.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot of fun. We still get that today. It's really fun to work with a business that lets sort of like me do that, because that's the most rewarding part of the job itself, is being able to design something like completely from scratch, something in my head that wants to escape, and turn it into something that will sell for them. That's it doesn't always work that way. Some people just want, branded stuff, which is fine. There's a place for that too.
Yeah.
But that's the really fun part of it.
Yeah. Tell me about your love for craft beer and how that integrates. And obviously then we can dive into, your BeerHop app and podcast.
Man, I always remember my first craft beer was in college when I had no money. And I remember it was Flying Dog was a brewery. I think they're still around. But anyway, I bought it because the packaging, it was just so cool looking. It was so badass. It looked like 90s grunge met like a rave. It was just kind of wild. And so I remember spending $6.99 on a 6-pack. And I remember thinking that was so much money. And then I was like, I better like this beer. Anyway, it was fantastic. I've never had anything like it. It was unbelievable. Blew my mind. And the problem with that, though, was now I wanted all the craft beer and I couldn't afford it. I was a college student with no money. So, but I would get it. It would be like a treat for me. And so I would get it when I can get it. And then, just fast forward over the years, I just kept drinking it. It's just so good. And then we would travel. Whenever we would travel, I'd try to hit up breweries and I'd do my own research, R&D or whatever. And when the laws changed here, man, it was like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I know I'm biased, but I've been around a lot of parts of the country. I really think Oklahoma City has some of the best craft beer per capita in the entire country. I really, truly believe that. There's a handful of markets that are hard to compete against, but Oklahoma City makes really good beer. So we're like, if people don't realize it, we're spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't not that I don't, I just don't have as much time to dive into it, I think. I don't, and I grew up in the UK drinking like lagers, right? Generally. Yep. And some other warm beers that I might drink in the winter. There's a beer named Doom Bar out of Cornwall. So good.
Ooh.
And I used to work behind the bar at the golf course, which is, you get to sample a few things when nobody was watching. But and I don't have the palate for it, I don't think yet. Yeah. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it's just fun to see people in Oklahoma City get behind a new scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you'll always have your people who just kind of similar story to you. They've loved it for a while. And then the scene kind of happens, and it's just fortunate the scene happened around you. But then you get the people who no idea what craft beer was until the scenes kind of come up.
Yeah.
And now they've dove into it, right? And maybe they've started home brewing and have opened their own space, right? Or, whatever it is. But it's such a great draw to Oklahoma City's kind of tourism market as well. It is. Not just the locals.
I agree, especially with, being like at basically the crossroads of two of the largest interstates in the country. We get a lot of traffic coming through here, and I don't have a data sample to be able to share, but I just know from other breweries, they get a lot of people from out of town that are driving through, and that is a thing that people are doing these days, where if they're going through a market or if they're staying there, they look up breweries and stuff, and so I think it's really cool, and we just have really good beer here, and I'm so proud of how good it is, compared to some of the quote unquote best markets in the country.
Yeah, where is Colorado the best?
Yeah, there's a few of them, like San Diego, Denver are two big ones. San Francisco area is big, Portland, Asheville, North Carolina, and then there's St. Petersburg, Tampa area in Florida. But anyway, there's some the famous ones, like Denver and San Diego are very big, and we're not there, but I'm proud to say that we're in the arena. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're on the map.
Yeah.
Tell me about the BeerHop thing then. That, I guess, what's the reason? I mean, you're running a business, you're busy, and then you decide to launch an app and just, like have a whole thing.
Well, something you should probably know about me before I even mention this is I tend to I tend to sort of take on more projects than I can really sort of handle.
It's a man thing. I'm guilty of it too.
And it's not even necessarily just businesses. Like I was coaching soccer teams. I was organizing trips. I was basically the one that I would spearhead the project that no one else wanted to spearhead, sort of thing.
You're the guy.
Yeah, I am, and I was good at it, so it was fun. But years ago, I was hanging out with some friends. Shout out Matt Connor from Frenzy, his wife Beth, and then Brandon Jones, home brewer, and his wife Julie. We used to do this trip to Eufaula, several times a year. We'd go to the lake and hang out, and we'd drink a lot of beer, And we were drinking, and we had this idea to sort of create this sort of, sort of like a thing that would give everyone the information that they would need to know about the breweries in one place. We didn't have all the details worked out, but we came up with a name. We started securing social media and URLs right then when we had been drinking, you know what I mean? And then like a year goes by and, we haven't really done anything with it, but I kept thinking about it. But at the time the laws hadn't changed. And so the tap rooms aren't like what you think of now, where you could just go in and have beers and maybe food. It was totally different.
For people listening, give us some context on what the law changed, so they're aware of it.
Yeah, so pre-law, there's been several laws changed, but the big one, before that, basically you would go into a tap room, and there were only a few of them. There's only like maybe a handful most. I can't remember. But you would go in and you could only have 12 ounces of beer, and you couldn't even have it. And it depended on the brewery. It was kind of weird. People would find loopholes and things like that. But one brewery you would go and you'd have to get it in. I think it was 4-ounce pours, and you could only have 3 4-ounce pours. One of them you could get a full 12, but that's all you could have. But basically 12 was the marker, and after you had that, you had to leave
because it was brewed on site.
Yeah, and so it had something to do with the manufacturing and not being able to sell product to a consumer, being a manufacturing sort of status, to my knowledge, I think. Well, anyways, when those laws changed in I think it was 2016, I believe, or 2017, I can't remember exactly, 2016. That totally changed the game. Now, basically, these tap rooms that were open could now just sell. They could operate like a brewery now or like a bar. You could just go and have multiple beers if you wanted or whatever. And then, so not only did that open the doors for the breweries that were open, but now you saw all these other breweries starting to open or breweries and planning and things like that, because now it was actually, you could make money owning a brewery. Before you had to distribute, and that was the only way you could make money. Now you could distribute and make taproom revenue. So that's what changed. And so when we were touring around with this idea, that law hadn't changed yet. And so we didn't really see the point in putting out some sort of one-stop shop for craft beer, because people aren't visiting tap rooms. That law changed, and I saw it was green light. And so I basically followed up with my friends. I'm like, hey, are we doing this? And they were like, no, have at it or whatever. I was like, okay. So basically I started formalizing a plan of how to launch this thing. And so when we launched in February of 2019, the plan was we were going to have these pamphlets or booklets, I guess, really, in every single tap room in the metro. And that pamphlet, the booklet was going to give you, the brewery, where it's at, its hours, if kids could come, if you could have dogs, did they sell food, could you bring food in, all the FAQ stuff that you would want to know as a patron. Anyway, we started distributing those out and all that sort of stuff. And meanwhile, when we were doing this and it was taking off, people were getting loving it, and especially the bar staff, because now they no longer had to pull up their phone and show someone from out of state. They could just say, hey, go grab that. But I think all along I wanted it to be an app eventually. I just didn't have the capital to be able to do it up front. So we gave it a few years, and shout out Josh Delosier. He approached us and was like, hey, I don't know if you guys ever want to do an app, but basically I've built it and here it is.
Shout out to Josh.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a sales pitch. I mean, the guy shows up, he had built BeerHop, the app, based on the pamphlet or the booklet or whatever. And I mean, I was like, wow, like, he didn't have to say like it would look like this. He basically, I was able to use it right then and there. And so we talked and we brought him in as a partner. And so he's been partnered with us, and he's awesome. He's our developer and my right-hand guy. And
So
he produces the podcast and does a hell of a job with it. And so, yeah, kind of like in about a 5-year period, we kind of went from supplying all these breweries with these cool physical booklets that had all this information and fun little games to do in them to keep people, entertained, to like a full-fledged app. And it's pretty cool, man. And now it encompasses the whole state now, so it's not just the metro. So all the breweries in Tulsa, all the rural breweries, all that sort of stuff.
How many breweries is that?
I think we're at like 78, 79 or something like that in the state.
That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
So good. I mean, shout out to Josh. I love hey, I don't know if you want an app, but I've built it and here it is. And
That's pretty boss, man. He was just like, here you go.
I want to be involved. If you want this app, get me involved. God, sick. And it's obviously then you start the podcast and get to chat and hang out with, people who love craft beer in Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, man. We just had you on a couple weeks ago.
Pumped to hear it. I don't get to sit in the opposite seat very often.
Isn't it
really
cool?
Enjoyed it. It is so much. Yeah, it's just like, and for me, it was refreshing because, my podcast generally follow the same model, sit, tell the guest story, hang out. But you guys just kind of come in here, crack a few beers, and just have a blast. And it was so refreshing to just kind of like, not in my head, like not think of, okay, what am I going to ask for the next question? What's going on? And I think that helps when you've got, there's 3 or 4 of you in around a table, right? The questions are coming from all over. It's not just one person thinking, I need to keep this conversation going, whereas you've got like 2 other guys there helping you kind of co-host, if you will.
It is, man.
A good time, but it's not about like. I was surprised that like you didn't. I thought you would have asked me more questions, but it was just inviting. It was more of you invited me into your night to hang out with you guys, and that's how it felt, and I loved that. It was such a refreshing.
Thank you, man. So, when we started this thing, we started it a year ago, and honestly, we just started it not to I don't know, we didn't really do it for any other reason other than we just kind of wanted to do it. Yeah. Because we all listen to podcasts and stuff. And
that's how Rogan started.
Yeah, okay.
Rogan started with just recording just with him and his buddies.
Yep.
And that's how he started. And now he's #1 in the world.
That's so cool. So, I certainly have a lot of fun with it. I'm a behind the scenes guy, and so when we first started, I was like incredibly nervous. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I go back and listen to the first episodes, there's a big difference.
You can feel it in your voice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like hard for me to listen to.
Yeah, same. My early ones are terrible. But again, back to what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, you have to start. You have to go through that awkward phase and that tough phase and learn, and now you get to where you're at.
It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite parts about BeerHop is the podcast. And I'm glad you said the hangout because that's exactly what we're going for. I have a couple things in my head that I want to ask, and Josh does too, and John, but like really the conversation sort of just kind of steers itself. Yeah. And that's what I love about it so much, because it is like we're just hanging out, we're having beers, and
it's exactly how I felt.
Like we're not really interviewing, we're all just kind of hanging out and talking.
Yeah. It was, it's exactly that. And it's just like you're hanging around a table, you got microphones in front of you, but you'd be talking about the same stuff if the microphones weren't there. Yeah. And that's like, it's a real life conversation, right? It's not like curated in any way. Yeah, you've got a few questions because you're generally curious about certain things. Because Josh, I think, was like, how'd you end up here? Yeah. Right? Like that was like the first question. Awesome. Love listening to it. And for people listening, I'll link it below so you can go check it out. Finishing up, it's, we're February 2024. What's the rest of the year look like for you? What do you have coming up? Summer, I assume it's probably quite a big thing for you, and events and weekends start to pick up, but what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so gearing up for the spring, in Oklahoma, the spring and the fall, along with the holidays, are the busiest seasons for us. we do a lot more business during those times. I think it coincides with being outside, and outside coincides with events. And so events, mean business for us. And so we're doing things, we're making orders. And so, I anticipate the spring being pretty big. The further we get away from the sort of the shutdown, I feel like every year gets a little bit better. Actually working on another project, go figure. Can't really talk about the details, but it's another company with a partner of mine, and it's sports related.
Okay.
So I'm excited to be able to talk about it when I can talk about it. But maybe we'll chat and in 6 months or something like that, and I can tell you a little bit more about it. But basically, it's another company, and I guess go back to what I was saying is I don't know when to stop. I guess I just keep doing things, and I don't. So
Guilty.
I don't know what kind of trouble I'm getting myself into. Basically, we'll find out.
I think if you're the same way as I am, which it sounds like, everything generally is centered around one thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I try to build what I do. It's like, if I add something in, then it generally has to circle back to whatever the end goal is. And if you keep doing that, then it doesn't really feel like it's taking too much away from you.
Yeah.
It's not like you're jumping into left field and just like, I'm going to open a coffee shop, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
You're staying within your industry.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, and working and doing the things you do on a daily basis, like you meet people, you learn new things. And, I was listening to Jason's podcast, that you did, and he was talking about filling gaps. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like that, right? Yeah. You just fill gaps. And so, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I made the right decision or not. But either way, I'm giving it a shot. So people, if you're listening, just do it, man.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Finishing up, since you love craft beer, if you could only drink, and I'll give you 5 beers for the rest of your life, what would those 5 be? They don't have to be Oklahoma City related, just 5 beers from wherever you travel.
So, like, not styles, but specific beers.
Specific beers.
Okay.
Like, for example, a lively amber that I drank, which was lovely.
Man, that is a tough question. I am going to have to put Coors Banquet in there. That's my go-to light beer. That's my lake beer. It's my pool beer.
It's the day beer.
It is, man. When I'm having to do, or it's a tailgating beer. It's when I'm having to do full-time duty on beer drinking.
I listened to do you watch Clarkson's Farm?
I don't know.
Okay, it's a brilliant show from back home in the UK on Amazon Prime. About to have season 3 come out. He owns a farm and he's got into brewing beer. And on the show, the first time they get the sample back, they get everyone who works on the farm into the shop, and one of the guys drinks it and he takes a big sip and he goes, "That's a session beer."
Yep.
And they were like, "What?" He goes, "Session beer. Like, I could drink that all day. Like, if you want to go on a session, this is the beer to do it on." So it sounds like Coors Banquet's your session beer.
It is, man. It is.
So and that's number 1.
And I'll probably just eliminate local breweries to eliminate any sort of I don't want to make anyone mad or anything like that or disappoint anyone. So we'll just eliminate Oklahoma beers for the sake of this question. But I'll say,
such a politician.
I know, man. Hey, man, I got to say,
got to protect the business here.
I got to protect the business.
Sorry, people listening. There's no consumer advice.
I know. I'm sorry. I've already said there's a lot of good beer here. There really is. But I'm gonna rule it out for this part. But Coors Banquet for sure. If we're talking about national breweries, I got to throw in Sierra Nevada Pale.
Okay.
Oh my God, that beer is wonderful. What else? I'd have to add Bell's Two Hearted. Fantastic IPA. Man, that's a really good question. Probably say North Coast Old Rasputin. Very good Imperial Stout. Man, one more. I'll say I'm gonna go back to Sierra Nevada. I'll say Sierra Nevada's Bigfoot barley wine.
Do you? I mean, thankfully, because your clients are breweries, the fridge is always stocked, which I really appreciate. Coming over here and never feeling bad about grabbing a beer out of your fridge because it's not like it doesn't cost you anything, so I don't feel bad. But someone's got to drink them at some point.
Yeah, I'm glad you are.
Yeah. I can't remember where I was going with that. I've only had one, I promise. Do you still, I know where I was going. Do you still trying to buy the beers you mentioned from out of state? Do you still trying to get those in every now and then, or do you save it for when you travel out there?
I will, yeah, I'll still buy, I mean, full disclosure, I'll still buy national brands. But the majority of my fridge at home and the majority of my beer here at MENT is local. And it's not just because they're my clients, and it's not just because it's good beer. But I'm a small business, and I very much believe in small business. And so me and my wife really try to do our best to support small businesses. So that goes the same for restaurants. That goes the same for grocery stores. We do, I mean, we can't do it all the time, but we do our best to support, put our money back into the other local businesses. So that is probably the biggest reason why we have so many local beers in our fridge. Along with what I said, I mean, they're good and they're our clients, but yeah, we like to support local, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's talk about beer. We can talk about beer forever, but talk about food too. Like, there's so many great places to go and eat and have a beer and eat great food. And God, we're so blessed with so many great locations to eat food. It's one thing I keep saying to do more of is, like, I don't do enough food content. And so that is my plan this year, is to do more food content, which will force me to go eat at a new restaurant, like, every single weekend, just to go try something new. I think my favorite, when people come to town, the favorite thing I like to send them is 405 Magazine did like a top 100 in Oklahoma. Yeah. Oklahoma City list. People listening, you just Google top 100 405 Magazine, top 100 places to eat, 405 Magazine, something like that. It'll come up. And it doesn't just list the places, it says what you need to get at the places. And so I don't know if Greg put it together or someone put it together, and it's like, bar abalada double cheeseburger, right?
Yeah.
Or go to somewhere and get the dessert, whatever. Like, it names all of them. So if people listening, you're like, I don't know where to start there.
Yeah.
It's 100 places.
Greg's good, man. He knows.
Loves it. So he's got a great story too, which I won't spoil. People listening need to go listen to that podcast, because you would not expect the story that he came out with. I'll just tell you that. It's, it is very, very fascinating. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure coming in. Thanks for having us.
Anytime, man.
Excited to keep our creative nights going whenever you will have us. It's been a blast, and looking forward to the next one. And thanks for doing my merch, man. I haven't started selling it yet. I think I did it a year ago. I still got a box in my.
You haven't
office.
Sold it,
dude? I've been giving them away instead. There's plenty of people wearing them. I just haven't managed to. I don't know if I want to sell it. It's just nice when you give someone. It's nice when you give someone a hoodie or a hat or a t-shirt. And so, like you mentioned, having a pop-up tent for the marathon last year, I had like a tent next to the Hall of Fame. I just gave out t-shirts to everyone that showed up to volunteer. Like, that's cool. Kind of a nice feeling.
That's cool, man.
Right? Like, as much as it would be nice to have, and I'm sure I will set up a merch thing at some point, because it's just an extra stream of business, and not have just black designs on them with black t-shirts with a white logo. Oh, come
on.
I'll have you design
Black has its own place, man.
I know it does. I look great in black. I'll have you design some like proper This Is Oklahoma stuff. That's what will sell. But yeah, man, John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate what you do. Love what you do. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And for people listening, I will put the link to John's business, MENT Apparel, and the BeerHop podcast down below as well. So it's been a pleasure.
Mike, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
People listening, we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffees really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffeeford.net, and then on Instagram at diffeefordlincoln.
This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.